Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom resound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungle's deep to the captive scene, Retics rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the serpentine kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.
Shout out to the DJ for that song.
What's up, Nicole? How are you?
I'm good. I was over here jamming.
Oh, I hear you. I was too. I'm like in the back. I said, "Yeah, all right, all right." And then I'm like, oh man, he said we're gonna be live as soon as it comes on. I'm gonna be over here freaking bebopping around looking crazy. What up, everybody? So what's up, everyone in the chat? We got who we got? We got RO, we've got
John D.
Daniel, Morph Master, Celtic, 319
Whoa.
Reptiles. What's going on, everybody? Jason Phil, All City James. Good to see all you guys. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on with us, Nicole.
Yes,
So, oh man, it's a pleasure. Sorry that Chris couldn't be here. He got called into work last minute, so now it's just you and me. But
Cool.
that's cool. We're gonna have some. I'll be honest. So like, I've been watching some of your stuff, watching like some previous interviews you did
Okay.
and stuff, and like I'm like really impressed with like some of the different things in this. So I've got questions, I've got stuff for us to talk about that I think is really cool. Some of
Okay.
the stuff that you're doing that like resonates with me, resonates with some other keepers that I know, and especially like some of the stuff that you're doing that we'll get into. I really like because I see a difference in the younger keepers are definitely going a different route. And a lot of what I heard you talking about is a lot of the way that they really want to go. I think that, you're seeing a difference in that the younger generation is less about having kids nowadays, and they're more about their pets of their kids, and they're spoiling them. They are, and from what I heard, and I want you to expound on throughout, is going to be like how you do it with Retics, because I think it was amazing what I heard and what I've seen and stuff. So, but for a start, introduce everybody to you. Tell us about you.
Yep. For those who don't know me, I'm Nicole, Nikki, Lady Tiz Exotics. I am a reptile keeper first. I will always say it in that order. And I also breed reptiles. And I say it in that order because I kept reptiles for the years increased, now 35 years before I ever decided to breed. I love the animals. So when you talk about the kids, so for me, my children was raised with ball pythons.
Okay.
I love the ball python. I think I got my first one. It might have been 1990, 1991. That was the first one that I owned. And at that particular time, it was totally different from now, but the
Right.
keeping part of it for me was very similar because I always felt like I had, my mom said it before, like I had a connection with all animals. When it comes to the reticulated python, though, it was an animal I always wanted to keep. But you always heard, they were hard to keep. They were difficult to keep. And then once they get older, they become more difficult. And so that was the hesitancy with that animal with me because I still had children, and I was like, if I'm going to get into that animal, I wanted my children to be grown out of the home. And I wanted to be where I can give the animal a lot more time because I thought that I believe that with any animal, though. I don't care how defensive an animal is. If you make the animal familiar with you in your personality, the why you do the things you do, how you function around them, you're going to get a better kept animal. That's with any dog, you know, if you raise pit bulls, Rottweilers, and anything.
I got a Roddy.
Oh, my Roddy just passed away April of this
I'm so
year. Yeah,
sorry.
that was my heart. He was, this is Joe, but this is the funny thing. When we got him, everybody said Roddies don't live long.
Mhm.
And they said, if you're going to get one, get a male. The males tend to live longer. So when we picked him up, he was an Amish bred dog. And I remember being in the back of the car with him. And I said, all I want you to do is give me 10 good years, 10 good years. If you give me that, I'll be okay. He died one day after his 10th birthday.
Oh
Like he
man.
held on almost like because he got sick
Right.
in the last week. And then like he went down. We knew something was not right. So we was going to take him to the hospital on the 15th. So his birthday was on the 16th. We took him the morning of the 17th. And the morning of the 17th is when we found out that we had to put him down.
Yeah. Oh man. That
Yeah.
is
That was my heart.
it's like gut wrench. I know I almost actually had that happen. Was it not last week with my Roddy? He had a massive seizure that lasted like
Mm,
almost 6.5 minutes before he
mm.
pulled out of it. And we were up with him literally all night, but he has a spot at the top of the stairs that it's his little spot. But he laid, couldn't control his bladder, had to put a towel under him, but he couldn't, like, he was so exhausted. He didn't move for 15 hours. And I had, you know, a vet appointment the next day. And luckily he pulled out of it. He's doing all right, but and he's getting older. He just turned 9 Saturday,
Mm.
Sunday, no, Saturday, the 28th. Yeah. He
Well, they
just turned
say
9.
that's good. When all the doctor kept saying, Miss Tisdale, he lived 10 years old. I don't see them coming here that old. You know, you should be proud. You should be proud. Listen, I wanted 15 years.
Oh, I know. I know. I get it. I get it. He's my first Rottweiler when I came back from South Korea 2.5 years ago, right? Um, and moved here. I was like, man, I really want a dog. And Rottweiler's always been on my breed of a dog that I wanted to own. And found this guy that he was a single owner, and the guy just at this point couldn't take care of him because he hit a point where he had too many children that he was like, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm like trying to
Right.
take care. He's like, he's not getting the attention. He's like, and he's being rough with the younger kids because he's just got too much energy. So he's
Yep.
been, he's been amazing. It took some work in the beginning to get him back, but like now I can take him anywhere with me and everybody. Like he's allowed down at my girlfriend. She bartends the bar right down the road from us, and the owner's like, Blue's welcome anytime. He's better behaved than half my patrons are. So, oh yeah, they're just amazing dogs. They
Yeah,
are.
and that I brought the Rottweiler up because in relation to the Retics, that's the best way for me to get someone to understand the
Hmm.
difference between what Retic you're going to have from baby to adult, and same thing with the Rottie. And I'll use an example with the Rottie. Any doctor tell you start touching their ears as a baby, because if you don't touch them or hug them as a baby, when they get older, they ain't gonna go for it for nobody. And so
Hmm.
you do that. My Roddy, up to the moment he died, you can literally put your hands on his ears, pull on him, his tongue, anything. You can brush his teeth, it's no problem in anything. So that was my mindset. My mindset was when I got into the reticulated python, I wasn't going to have a snake that was going to be jumping out at me.
Right.
But let me tell you the story. When I got the first one, I was terrified, like terrified of not the snake, of all the things that people said it would be. And that was my Motley Golden Child Sunfire that I
Oh,
had got
nice.
from, she's had albino. She was the first one who ever bred for me too. Beautiful animals. And I got them from Jim Jolly. That's Chala. So she gets here. She's a baby. She's like 3 months old, the biggest baby I ever seen. Because remember, I only kept, at this point, I only got boas, corn snakes, and ball pythons. So this is the biggest baby I ever seen. So I get her out the box. Now, of course, reading all my studies, let me get the hook just in case I need it. And she looked up at me, came right out the box, came right up on me, still terrified. Anybody who remember watching that video, I had one glove on like Michael Jackson. I had one glove on his hand. His hand was free. I always like to have one hand free so I can touch the animal. And then she came out one of my arm, no problem. So I think that first week I was taking her out every day, every single day. I think it was like that 7th day because I was going to feed her probably on the 8th. So I took her on the 7th day and I was going to give her, let her soak, let her swim.
Mhm.
And my husband saw it. I didn't see it. I turned around and he jumped. And I'm like, what? He said, she just struck at you. When I took the top off the tub, it scared her, it stunned her. And so she
Right.
struck at the top. So it was the first thing I learned with her was, okay, she definitely doesn't want to be approached a certain kind of way. And so from then, I never approached her that way again. I still have never seen that strike because he saw it, my back was turned, and I've never seen her strike ever again. That was from day one. So that's when I realized, okay, just respect the animal, see what they like and they don't like. And then as I got more, because I fell in love with her, it didn't take a long time. I think it was like a month. I was like, Jim, I'm gonna need like 3 more of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
And
3
I
more.
and that's and so and like obviously being the sales manager over at Reach Out, like I talk with customers all the time. And that's something I hear all the time. And it's also something that I actively combat. In the social media aspect, it's like, hey, why, like there's so many people that think that they need to gatekeep these animals. And
Mm,
it's there are definitely people that don't need to own a retic for sure.
absolutely.
There are people that don't need to have children either, but they're still doing
Absolutely.
it. So, like, but I do think, from our aspect, and I've said this before, is if you are the person that's breeding them and going to be selling them, whether it's a company like us or where you have someone like me, or you're the one doing it, I think that there is a responsibility to feel that person out. Trust your gut with the questions that you're asking and the answers you're getting. Um, and then going from there to say, okay, like, is this the right species for you? Maybe it's not, but I don't think that it's a blanket statement of like these, these animals just don't belong with just everybody. I mean, I think that a lot of snake people absolutely can,
Yeah.
especially on, now with super dwarf and dwarf side of it, going, getting, picking up more and more traction where it's like, I can give you everything you love about that big snake in a smaller package. It's still an
Mhm.
impressive package, right? And it's still an animal like at as an adult, you still got to respect for sure, but
Right.
it's not, a 20 foot, either, right? That you're gonna be like, oh man, it's hitting 14 feet, it's too big for me now. I'm turning it over, it's going away, like
Right.
that's what I hate. But what you're talking about right there is figuring out where what can you do to make people have it click. And
Yep.
so we do, education events. Do you know Abby, the curly haired keeper?
Yep. Hmm.
So Abby's a really good friend of mine, lives like 25 minutes from me, and me and her and Jody, we do education events around our towns and stuff like that. And the biggest thing is you always have those people like, oh, I'm scared of them. And I say, and this is where I start with everybody. I'm like, listen, I said, they have a body language. And from a child, I was like, you were taught to read a dog's body language because dogs are prevalent. You're going to see them out. I'm like, would you walk up to a dog that's got its head down, its hair standing up? Absolutely not, because you were taught that. I was
Hmm.
like, now let me teach you a retic, body language from a distance. And then once they start to see it and the light bulb clicks, it's all about making the work with what you're talking about to click with somebody. That's what you're looking for. So I
And
think
I
if you
also
figure
think
that out.
it's overrated, right?
Mhm.
Because if I look back, I wish I had started with Retics in 1990, 91. Now, of course, it was a different Retic then, but going to what you're saying. So when I first got into them, and people started to see how my animals were. I like a year in. A year in, people were like, wait a minute, these animals are totally different. So when I got the tiger pie, everybody kept saying that's going to be the one that's going to give you a run for your money. That
Mhm.
is to date one of the chillest retics that I own. So I'm like, okay, now I got the tiger pie. Then it was, well, wait until they get 10 feet and wait till they start breed. Well, I got my breeding males who run around here all day, arching and everything, and I can still hold them. I can still engage with them. Now, one thing I do believe, because we see it, my son handles them. So I have a special needs son. He's an adult now.
Mhm.
But he handles these, something about how they communicate with him is even better than how they communicate with me. It's something about it. I don't know if it's their intellectual read or
Right.
what. But the females are more prone to go right to him, and the males are the ones that's easy with me. So I truly believe it's something about the pheromones that the sexes get off. So I determined that maybe the stories that I heard from a lot of the men dealing with those breeding males could
Mhm.
be because of that dynamic. And I don't experience that. They're still very soft with me, gentle with me. I can open Hefe's if he wasn't in shit. Is he in shit? Yeah, he's still in this shedding process, because that's the cool thing about retics. You know, when they eat or when they shed, they damn they dead. They come back to life
Yeah.
after that.
Later. I'll see you.
That's when you
I'll
get a
see you in
break.
3 days.
Exactly. But with him, he'll come out and he's always in breeding mode, it seems. Like I think he never turns his off. It's crazy. And he comes out and he'll arch, but he'll come on me and he's still gentle. He knows not to squeeze too tight on me, like all of that. And so then it was, well, now she got the breeding males and she's still able to do this. And so that's where I feel like the women was always with me, but that's where I started to get the respect of the I'll say because I'm older. I'm 51. I'm not as young
Mhm.
as I look. But the people who have been doing it longer. So I like to, when I say older, I mean older in the
Right.
hobby, dealing
Yeah.
with the retics longer. And what I have determined is that they all have different personalities, just like our children.
Mhm.
Um, Joe, right now, I have one who literally spends most of her time out of her enclosure upstairs in my makeup room. She sleeps in the closet. She pulls the blanket down on her, everything. She's like a little friend. Like she just shows up in my makeup room, and I can be sitting there on live and you'll see her just show up, and she don't bother me. She'll look like, hey, I'm going in the closet, and that's where she likes to be. That's the golden child
Right.
cow. She loves to be there. And how do we figure that out? We let them come out. We let them, all of these snakes roam this entire house. There's not one that can't go anywhere except for in the room where the Yorkie pool, who would be food, is. So we know how to communicate to keep that door closed because we got the
Mhm.
snakes out. You have some who will follow me like little dogs from one room to the other, especially the big ones. So that's why I love mainlands. I love the
Right.
mainland because you can treat them like that. They're gonna, you know where they are. They're not gonna get lost. You can be able to find them wherever they at because you're gonna hear it, see it, something falling, whatever. So I
For
like that
sure.
about them. But I also like the fact that the confidence of the mainland, I feel like gives me I have a dwarf.
Mhm.
She's the sweetest, but she's highly active. You're never going to get her to just let me do a podcast and sit in this room. It ain't going to happen. She's going to be somewhere,
No.
and we're not going to find her because she's going to be into everything. She's just a busy little snake. The mainlands, once they get to a certain side, becomes very chill, very
Mhm.
confident, very matter of fact in their movements, where they want to be. They're not overly active at that particular point. So I love them for that particular reason.
Right.
but they're all different. And one of the things that I wanted to do, and I am an advocate for it, is to show people if you can keep a baby ball python, you can keep a retic. You want to know how I know? If you worry about getting bit, I get bit by ball pythons. Never get bit by retics.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, and it's true. I love the fact that you're talking about that they have personalities,
Hmm.
and so I've definitely always said that, and I feel like, I mean, I still consider myself pretty new. I think I got started maybe 8 years ago with my first where I kept my first snake. I got a ball python. It was a spider ball python. And I got it because at the time I was in the army and I was a recruiter, and they had sent me to Cumberland, Maryland, and I had a boxer named Zach, and I just could not find any place for me to rent that would let me have a dog. So
Gotcha.
after a while, like always having a pet, I'm like, and it's just me. I'm like, like, dang, I gotta have something to take care of. What can I like kind of hide fairly easily from my landlord? And that's where the first snake came in. And I got a ball python. And then I was like, I wanted to just branch out. I got a pair of blood pythons. Um, and then I found Retics, and it was the infamous photo, from Garrett, where it's the little bitty Retic sitting beside the chapstick tube. That old one, right? That's the one that got me. And I bought that snake. And I was like, and he was 2.5 hours from me. I was like, just let me come up, pick it up, don't ship it, and he agreed. And after that, like I was hooked, and then I was up all the time. And I don't know how, but before I knew it, I had amassed like a extensive collection of, super dwarf and dwarf retics, had a couple mainlands, and I was like, and then it, and then it sucked because like I didn't think I was close enough to the end of my career where I was like, and I was high enough rank. I'm like, cool, I'm coming off recruiting. This is a shit assignment. I'm gonna get choice of assignment. I'm never gonna have to go overseas again, right?
Right.
No. And they sent me to Korea, and I had like there's a video, Garrett come and he helped me and we loaded up. He took part of my collection, and then my friends Matt and Becca down in Georgia took the rest of it while I was there. And they took care of my animals. I love them for it because I'd have not been where I'm at today. I had to restart, if I hadn't
Right.
had that help. And it was crazy. But coming all back around full circle about what we're talking about, shit. I'm bad. I get off on tangents. Sorry.
Oh,
Um,
you good. We
but
talking retakes. I can do this all day.
but when you're talking about that personality, right? Like that's when I really started to see that every individual snake
Hmm.
has a personality. And then, like I said, when I moved here, and been dating the girl I've been seeing now for 2 years, and I got her. She's had snakes before, but I really got her into it. She's
Hmm.
seen it now. She like makes up like entire backstories for the snakes. She's like, this one was a Frenchman that just sits at he's like 80 years old now, and he sits there every morning with tea and a baguette. And like she does and it's just great. Like I love it, but it is important. Like I deal with this especially is like with snake people, they're like, man, they're so used to, especially if they're brand new to retics or super dwarfs or whatever. They're like, well, how does this go? And I'm like, it's a science. It's an art, not a science. I'm like, there's parameters, but I'm like, you have to be willing to learn
Yes.
your snake. I'm like, read your
Engage.
snake, engage
Hmm.
your snake, because and I'm like, if with a retic, it is different. If you treat them with the same that you're trying to like train a dog, if you do that, like you will see a totally different side that all the older keepers, right? They
Hmm.
just don't see it because of the way that they kept and the way they interacted.
Absolutely.
That's the science. The art comes in after, and it's like you and me and Abby. I'm like, Abby did the most awesome video when Stella was on eggs, because any retail breeder will tell you, you don't mess with a big mom while she's sitting on eggs. She's not gonna let you mess. Abby sat there and was like, here's a cup of water, because that's how much trust she has with that animal.
Yep.
And
When the Molly Golden Child Sunfire had the babies, we trusted her so much. My son is a video. That's who pulled the eggs. She
yeah,
pretty much gave them to him, like, okay, Michael, here's the babies. Like,
right.
no events whatsoever. In fact, with none of the big snakes, including the berm, I pulled them on. I pulled the berm eggs on live. None of them are reactive to that. So it's about their trust thing. They trust
Hmm.
us whether it's their babies or their health. Like with the cow, I talk about when we had to deal with her and her pushing. Like I was literally having to go in her mouth. And those are the things that you got to be willing to do. And people would ask, well, how can you do that by yourself with that big snake? She's not resistant. She knows I have to go in her mouth. Now she don't like
Because
it.
you
Like
built
she's
a
definitely going
trust.
to get away from me after I do this, go back to her enclosure, look at me mad by her water bowl after I do it.
Hmm.
But she's going to let me do it because she knows what I'm doing. I'm required to do it to help her. And
I'm just saying, I
I'll
never
do that
leave
on
the
live.
dentist happy either, you know?
Yeah, I really try to I do stuff like that on live, like because the only thing I don't do on live with Retics is the feeding, and it has nothing to do with the community. It's more about the people who don't understand that
Don't
this is how these
understand.
animals eat. But I wish I could. Now on the back of my YouTube channel, the people who follow the members, they get to
Right.
see it, and they'll see that no. I know y'all see videos where the snake is coming out the enclosure to get the rabbit. I can hold this
Hmm.
rabbit right here. This snake will not move until I place this rabbit in there. I have the big three who won't even touch the rabbit until I leave the room. It's almost like they looking like, is she out the way? They'll wait until I leave. When I get out the room, you'll see right here on this camera, they will then approach and gently pick that animal up to eat it. They're not flailing through there. They're not. Now, my dwarf, when it eats, it eats. Get out the way. You have to put that food in there, close the door, get out the way.
Right.
But I think that with the older ones. So I would say I'll call the big five I have. So they will be my first five, the older ones.
Hmm.
All of them, I can literally walk around this house with them out with food in my hand. They will not budge. Now, I don't know the science behind it. I think they truly know that I need her out the way so I don't hurt her. That's the only thing I can
Right.
think of.
It
I
is
need
very
her out
hard
the
to
way.
explain,
Yeah, but they
you know?
know.
Right. But when you're trying to explain how you do it, it's like, how do I explain this? Just the feeling, it's the connection. Like, and if you're not, so like that's awesome. Like I love that. So like one of the things like I do is I love to take retics that are nasty, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the ones that can't do anything with them, right? For instance, we had one that came back of Garrett's that was out on breeding loan, and she's a pretty good sized girl, she's 11 feet, right? And the very first owner that had her he was scared of her. So like literally all he would do was throw food at her. She'd wrap, he'd move her to an enclosure. So all she understood, all she understood is when that glass opens, whatever is there is food. Right. And so and she's a sweet snake though. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but Garrett was like, can you take her home? I'm afraid she'll be a liability at the shop. I know you know how to work with a snake like that versus
Right.
at the shop, someone, and it takes time. You have to recondition. And it's 6 months, 8 months later now, but she's not striking at the glass every time. I definitely would not. I don't let my girlfriend handle her. I wouldn't let anybody handle her that I don't feel like has as much or
Right.
experience as I do because
Right.
we're still retraining,
Yes.
but
And you're
at the
fully engaged with her. You know what to look,
right.
how to handle it if she do try to come back at you and all that type of stuff.
And that's the thing. And that's where I tell people, I'm like, guys, you have to make that connection with your snake. I was like, make that connection. If you let it be just a display pet, I'm like, it's gonna act like a display
It's
pet.
going to act like one. Yep.
But if you why don't you try giving it options instead of jerking it out every time? Why don't you take a little bit of time, just open the enclosure, have an interaction with that snake, and start to earn its trust, it will want to come to you. Like I've got, man, I'm somewhere around 60 super dwarf and dwarf retics, right? Total.
Somewhere.
Somewhere in that number. And along with, and I've got one mainland pied and a eastern red throat indigo. Um, but I know each and every snake, and I know their personality. And it's funny because I'll bring people over, I work with them, they'll
Yeah.
start handling, and I'll be like, just watch. I was like, and I was told, if I hold my hand out, she'd start figuring out how to make her way to me,
Yep.
and I'm like, this is where she wants to be.
Yep.
Versus like my Sunfire Marble 50% fill, that dude just hates my girlfriend. And every time she walks by, anytime she opens his tub, it's just they don't get along. Or well, he don't get along with her anyway,
I was
but
going to say, but even with that, I think where we underestimate these animals is we was talking this on my podcast on Monday. Me and Morgan was talking about this. These animals, where people don't think they have feelings and emotions, jealousy is one. They can be very. If I come in this room with another retic and the big five are awake, I better
Mhm.
open all those doors. They not having it. They will come to the glass and they're gonna let you know, like they on it, like hello, like what's this going on out here? They have that, and it may not be the emotion of jealousy as we know it, but however way they know it is a desire to be with you, like that other animal is with you at
Right.
that particular time. So I tell people all the time, they ask me, well, because my husband doesn't, he's very supportive. He financially supports anything that I do. He'll buy any retic that I ask. I think for the last, I think it was 2018 to 2020, I wanted a retic every Christmas. So he'll get whatever I want, but he
Tell
doesn't
him to get a hold of
handle
me. I
them.
help him out.
Yeah, he doesn't handle them like me and my son do. Now,
Right.
Lord and behold, he handles them now, but not like we do. So he can't read them like me and my son
Mhm.
can read them. So, like you said, I would never say, babe, go out there and pull this one out, because he would totally turn them into bullies. Because another thing that retics don't like is when they're 100% comfortable and somebody come around them acting all nervous, like, because they get on point real fast, like, who are you and why are you acting like this? Because this is not
Oh
how my
yeah.
mom engaged with me. So they'll become bullies real fast. They'll remember that I am a 20-foot snake real fast. But one of the things that when you talk about the personality, I treat them that way. So there are certain snakes. My Molly Tiger could care less about being outside of her enclosure. How do I know? When I open up all the doors, when I take all the glasses off for cleaning day, she's the only snake that doesn't come out. She will even come to the corner, like the edge, and watch the other snakes roll past her. I have where when their doors is off, the core snakes who grew up in a room together, you'll see them navigate through each other's enclosures. Like they will commune together in that way,
Mhm.
go through each other's enclosures and all of that. She can have a snake come through her enclosure. She will even like acknowledge the snake is there, still won't come out. I have to take her out the enclosure. She's the only one to clean, to let her, get some stretch, because she's a big girl. The Motley Tiger is probably my biggest, even though she's not the oldest, she's a big girl.
Yeah.
So I let her come out, get her stretch in, and then she'll go back in when she's ready. All of my snakes will go back in when they're ready, regardless of where I'm at in this house. But she will not come out on her own. So knowing her personality, she's not one that I take out every day because she don't want to be out every day.
Yeah. She's an introvert. She's just like, I'm good.
She's good. Then you got the purple sunfire right across from her. Very similar personality. So what I've also noticed is that some of the behaviors they pick up from the others. Like when I put some of the sub-adults in with the adults, I noticed the sub-adults that I put in that room with those adults and the ones that I put in with these adults kind of take on the personalities or the activities of those others. So it tells me these snakes are observing each other too. So they're
100%.
watching how that snake engages with us. And so the younger ones are learning how to be handled through the other ones as well. So to your point, I think what we're starting to see with the newer generation, because you have examples like myself, yourself, Abby, and others who
Lori
really work with
Tarinier
the
is another good
intellect of
one.
their head. Yeah. So they're seeing that. We didn't have that. In
Oh yeah.
1997, if I wanted to get a retic, all I was going to see was a F1 flying at somebody, trying to, frail at somebody. I didn't see. And then no one was honest enough, I would say, because I think at some time, and I'll say this, and I say it very candidly. It was, you talk about the gatekeeping, it was the man, it was a man thing. It was a man thing. Then you had these little cute women coming in. You got Abby coming in, and you got Nicole coming in, and we're handling these things, very ladylike. It's not a
Yeah.
man thing no more. And so for us, I think, and specifically for women who would ask me about keeping, I'm not a tall woman. I'm 5'3". I'm not a huge woman. I will say I'm a strong woman because just dealing with these animals every day, you're going to be strong, even if you don't go to the gym. But I'm a strong woman. So what I try to get people to understand, especially customers, I don't care what you heard about the snake. I don't care what you see. I want you to build your own relationship with your animal. And if you're not capable of doing that, it's not the animal for you, because that is
Right.
how I have the animals that I have. There's not one of them that I fear. There's not one of them that if there's a problem, like if I got to go in the biggest one mouth, I have to do, these are things that I do. I touch them in those places. You'll see me always put my hand totally on their face. I did that from when they were babies, because I wanted them to be big snakes that I can also do that with in case I have to go in their mouth or something. So I think
100%.
what we're seeing now, and what I still want to continue to see, because people talk about people shouldn't keep retics more and more. No, I want to see more and more people keeping them, but I want to see us teach people how to properly keep them. So I do vet all my customers. If you've never kept a retic before, you most likely won't be able to buy one from me, and that's okay.
Right.
And it's only because I'm more concerned about my animal. If you got an animal for me, I want to know what's going on with it. I want pictures. I have people who I've sold to at shows who sends me text messages because they done built the best enclosure I've ever seen. And that excites me, because it tells me that excitement of that little baby they bought for me is the same excitement now that baby is now 12, 13 feet. And I love that. I love that about what we do. So I think that I want to see more people keep them, because I think it's an unfair market when it comes to them, because we done told, and I say we as a community, for so many years told people that you can keep them. If you don't. Now, one thing I will say, these are the things that I say that you must have: space. And when I say space, I'm not talking about a mansion. I don't live in one of those. But you do need a yard space. So in the summertime, they can confinedly get out without disturbing your neighbors, because I do hate, people got to understand, these are big snakes, and I know we love them, but to your neighbors, that can be the most frightening thing to
Anything
ever
ever.
see.
Oh,
So
for
be
sure.
conscious of that, right? So
Yeah.
I do think you
Yep.
need the space. I do think you need to be, if you one of them people who needs a donation to feed your current collection, a retic is not for you. Okay. You got to be able to house, feed, and grow with them. I have some, that one of them that's in a 10-footer that I definitely know that I want to be in a bigger enclosure than a 10-footer because of her movement in her enclosure. I watch her. She actually does stuff in there. Where the other ones can be in an 8-footer, and I never would have to actually upgrade them because they only that active outside the enclosure. So again, telling people that every snake needs a 14-foot enclosure, that's just not true, because you're wasting space with some of them. Then there may be some that wants, like this cow who wants the whole house, staircase, and everything else. But then you got to have the space to give them that. And that's my thing. Space and money, you definitely have to eat in time, but you don't need to have owned another snake before that. My concern is to my customers is that I'm not going to sell you one of my babies, because they come into you. I don't release my retics unless you can pick them up out the box. I'll tell anybody that. You can pick that baby up out the box, and you're going to be able to take it outside. You're going to be able to hold it, and you're going to be able to hand it to your child. Like all this stuff we do with my grandkids when they here, they're handling them babies as babies and everything. If I can't guarantee that snake can't leave here. And that's why I still have one of these super mollies. Not that she's fine outside the enclosure. People see me hold her all the time. But you go inside that enclosure, she coming out hot. And you got to know how to move around her. You cannot be slow. She's one of those.
Yeah, see, yep. I got one like that. Joker, man. He's slowed down a little bit in his old age, but golly, growing up, like it was funny. I took a chance with him. He is like I said, I have a lot, right? And everybody asks us like, oh well, if you could only, keep one or we'll be nice, we'll give you a pair, right? And for me, it's actually two of the first snakes that I bought. And I mean, and I have probably I have a very diverse super dwarf collection. I mean, and I've got, Karampas, Madus, pure
Mm,
jams, pure Kalatoas, pure Kiowatis. And so I've got stuff that, is worth a lot and would be, and people are like, that's not what you keep. And I'm like, no, what I would keep is I have an Anery Motley Tiger. Her name's Peaches. Um, a lot of people do know her, and she's absolutely gorgeous. She's 25% jam, 25 Cato. She's around 11 feet, so she's not the smallest. And then I have Joker, he's a Anery GC Sun Platy Tiger. Um, and he's 25 and 25, but he's only like 7.5 feet, right? But those are my two that I'm just like, nope, if I had to let everything else go and just have a pair, like those are it, those are the
right.
babies. And it's just I think part of it, is like because I got them in the beginning and I had such a connection with them, like, and he was
Yep.
such a little jerk, and he's one that really taught me so much about like, all right, I've got to figure this guy out in comparison, and that's what, and I love him now, but he is one like he will be like nonchalant and then turn around and just be like, "What's up? I just want to bite," like, and
Right.
not even for a good reason. He's not holding on. He's just like, I think it's his way of telling me he loves me. But
Yeah, that's how I
um,
am. Charlotte and Hefe are the two that they're not my by like it's not my prettiest, It's definitely not that. But they're
but
definitely my
it's
favorites. Because Charlotte taught me all about Retics. She was my first. Hefe was the
mhm.
second after her. So he was my first male. So he's my first male to breed and everything. The story of them, I never my first touch of Retics, they bred themselves. He literally knew she was ready, came out, went in her enclosure one day. So I'm thinking they just surfing like out, they always surf. They were locked within, it was like a minute. And I turned to my husband. I'm like, oh my God, babe, they breeding. So he looked at me. He said, well, we ain't pulling them apart.
Yeah.
And
What are you gonna do?
right. And people always say they were so hard to breed. So I didn't stress it. I said, well, she ain't gonna get pregnant. People say they're very hard to breed. That one time she went through the whole cycle.
People say they're hard to breed because they're not letting them do it. We're
Because I said they didn't know that. So when people was like, I never paired them. They paired their damn selves. He knew, she knew, and they were locked just like this. It was so fast. And like my husband said, but we're not even, because what I didn't know was, should I interfere with this? I'm not going to try that. Right. So I was like, we closed
mm-mm.
the door. And I said, she ain't going to get pregnant. They said, so hard. Boom. February. The eggs in the
Yeah.
ground.
I mean, it's just because, yeah, I think people do say it's hard because then they're sitting there, they're going through a routine, right? And I get it because that, as a keeper and a breeder and that has a lot, like it's like, okay, go through, palpate, right? Like, and you're trying to gauge it. Whereas, with yours, they just know and they make it happen.
And it
I
just
know.
went
You mean
smooth sailing. It was her first pregnancy, no slugs or nothing. Like she just
that's awesome.
went straight through.
All right. Well, yeah, I love it. We've been just going at
Like,
it.
yeah,
I
it's a
do
retake. When Chris sent me
have,
that message and told me we were going to be doing this, I was like, yes. So even on
oh
my
yeah,
morning podcast, it's not supposed to be about retics every Monday. We make a joke. It always ends up about being retics. So we'll go through the subject and we'll start talking about retics. But it's something that I love these animals. I adore them. I am glad, and I take pride in seeing a lot of new keepers keep them. I do have some people who follow me who I, sold their very first ones too. Like Maki, for example. I'm able to tell people based on their personalities what retic that I'm selling is good for them. So Maki's boy, she's from Hawaii. She's very loving, very sweet, very caring. I said, this one is full rotten. This is what you need for your first retic. And the way she treats this snake, and to see her with this snake, I'm like, I told you, them two are like this. But it's the animal who likes to engage the keeper all the time. Even when he was a small baby, he wanted to engage. He is very, very loving. And to see her with that animal, or to see other people I placed animals with, like you can tell, like I'll give Dre a more defensive animal because I know he can handle that under any circumstances. But there is certain snakes that are just sweet babies. And all they want to do is be held and like in the company of that keeper. And I love to see people just treat them like that. Like if I tell you this is how your animal is, that you give them that love and it builds, you get to see that relationship continue to build.
Yeah. And it's once you get them started on that thought process, like, hey, I know that you're conditioned by our society to think that they're evil and they're bad
Right.
and they're vicious and they're going to chase you and all this stuff, right? I know you're conditioned by
Right.
society for that, but I'm like, change your thought process and then see if you don't get the results. That's
Yeah.
because that's what did most dog if you take your dog to school, and they're teaching your dog, what do they tell you? It's not the dog, it's the owner.
Yep. It's
And
the
it is the
owner.
same thing with retics. And
Yep.
when you actually start to open your mind, I'm like, guys, I'm like, treat this like a friendship, a new friendship. I'm like, I don't have the answers to tell you how to become friends with your people in Colorado.
Right.
I'm like,
Exactly.
I'm like, but I'm like, try and take a more humane approach to it. Like, you
Yep.
take a more humane approach to it, you're going to see a difference in how that animal's going to act. And then
Totally different.
start going with that flow, that natural. I'm like, I can't give you those the answer. It's not like, like we said, there's a science to it. The
Yep.
science is, what do I need the temps to be? What, in order for the snake to survive? What do I need the size like that? But
Right.
I'm like, I'm like, if you're saying, oh, well, everything's right. Okay. And I love that, right? Because you get, oh, what's wrong with my snake? Everything's right with the parameters.
Yep.
Is it? You didn't even let me ask. So, but if you're
Yep.
an expert, why are you asking me about what's wrong? Like,
Yep.
let's go through it because maybe it isn't. Like, I'm a firm believer personally. I think we keep retics too hot. I think we
So
keep
I
most snakes too hot.
so I don't so perfect example, right? That's another thing. Keep the hot side 86. There's not an 86 hot side in my house. Okay. The hottest you're going to get on the hot side is 82, 84. But let me tell you where they sit at 76, 78. And
Hmm.
the one that I tell you who comes out, I think she actually wants it cooler than that because the room she goes to is my makeup room, the coolest room in the house. And she has an option, Joe. She is
Oh,
no
that's
door.
it.
She has an option. That closet, the coolest closet in the house, it has to be every bit of 70 in that closet. And that's where she chooses to
So
sit.
Daniel Solis, does his trips to the islands and stuff, right? And I got to meet him and stuff a couple years ago, and then he did he came to Retic Fest and did a video, and he really talked about it. But it was like for us on the super dwarf and dwarf side, their main food source is bats, right? Bats are found in caves.
Caves.
You
Yep.
go so far into a cave or so
Yep.
far underground,
Yep.
it's 57 degrees,
A
and
perfect example of that is the Mayan jungle. When you go down into the caves in how out here is warm, but when you go down in there, it's cold when you get down into that. That's a perfect
it's
example.
right. And that's where, so when I moved to Pittsburgh area here, I rent my house. My landlord, I was very upfront with him, and he was like, I don't have a problem with it as long as they're in a basement.
Hmm.
I was like, cool. That's where I wanted them anyway. My
Right.
basement stays 65 to 68. I have, I'm down to less than 1.5% meal refusals through a month, through an entire month since I cooled them off, right?
Yep.
Like their personalities are better. So then I really started like, all right, I started looking at, I mean, we have all the technology, we're on it. Go to your weather app, go type in
Yeah.
Calato, go look at it. And then the other one that really got me thinking was when I got an Eastern red throat indigo, right? They're native to Florida. Everybody's like, oh, they like it hot. No. Where do you find them? You find them in tortoise burrows that go down below the frost line. That's where they lay their eggs. And you only find them out up until like either 10 at night or at like dusk when it's not hot. So
Yep.
like mine, she gets a spot where she can get up close to, and she gets 76 degrees. She can get right up on top of it. And she gets that for a certain amount of hours a day. Other than that, it's the room. And she does amazing, eats, sheds perfect. She is, and so I started applying that and I started telling people, and I'm like, guys, I'm like, you got to really think about it. Like, our body temp runs 10 degrees hotter than like the max industry standard for these snakes. Like, they're
Yep.
gonna feel cooler. Or, somebody's like, oh, well, I soaked my snake. I put it in warm water. I'm like, no, for that snake, you just scalded it. That's why it pooped, because you
Exactly.
just shocked its system. It expelled everything and it was trying to get
Exactly.
out. And I'm like, it feels warm to you. I'm like, that's 130 degrees and you just dropped it in there. So I'm
Yep.
like, put your snake in 80, 75-degree water. They're fine. Soak them in that. They're okay. Like, they don't have to be this hot all the time. And I think that's why they're getting, you got people that are like, retics they get a bad attitude.
I was getting ready to
If I'm
yeah.
hot all the time, I'm in a bad mood too. You know what
They
I'm saying?
they don't want to be irritated. So I think that that's from paying attention to them, right, Joe? So I have cameras on all of them, and I always say I learn the most about my animals and my water monitor by watching them on camera at night when they don't know I'm around.
Right.
Although they can read the eye of that camera, because some of them will look right when that camera moves, they'll look right at it like what's going on here? Like, they know something is inside their camera. They just don't know it's me. And I'll watch them. And that's when I learn the most about a lot of my animals, especially the bigger ones, the lizards and the larger retics. And that's how I know that all how people we assume that all snakes are active at night. No, not all of mine. Some of them, I have some who are active at night and some who are active during the day. The camera tells
Hmm.
it all. And the ones
Yeah.
that you come downstairs during the day and they look like they knocked out, that's because they was all active last night. But the other ones, some of them just are not active at night. That's the time when the lights go out, they relax and then they become active during the day. So all of those myths, that we have debunked, but I think we are at a place now that what I love, when I started YouTube with these animals, there was nobody on there showing these animals in a positive light. I will say that I truly believe that after that year I started it, more and more people started doing more videos, and some of the vets as well showing these animals in a positive light. I say to people all the time, I can only speak to the retics in his house. Mike said one
Yep.
time, Nicole doesn't keep retics, she raised them, right? And I use that phrase all the time when I'm talking to people. Don't keep them, raise them. I said, that was something that Mike said. He said it as a joke, but it's a real thing. Just like you have your children and your grandchildren, if
Hmm.
you invest in paying attention to how that snake think when it eats, because that's another thing, all retics don't like to eat all the time. That's a big myth. Don't
Oh
they
yeah.
will they will take it because you put it in there, but they don't necessarily need it and or want it. So even understanding what their behaviors look like when they're really hungry. all those things you get to figure out better, and it helps you keep better, helps you save money because
Yeah,
you're not slamming
because
a random
feeders
every
aren't
month down
cheap.
there. Exactly.
I know.
um I think that too. What I love to see as more women starts to keep them, because I'm an advocate for that. So that's how my logo and everything
Mhm.
came up. I wanted to show the strength of the woman in the reptile hobby, and that yes, although we as women can hold these big snakes too. That's the way it all came from. And so seeing more and more women keeping them through me, I have women who have bought from other people because I'm, the genetics I keep are the genetics I love. So if you want a
Mhm.
different group of genetics, I know who got them. I'm going to send you over there. I'm not going to sit there and sell you on mine because another thing I think that you have to want is to want to keep the snake that you have. Kind of like that when you
100%.
buy a big house or a nice car. You ain't going to make them payments if you don't love it. So whatever it is you want to see in that enclosure and bring out, I can show you where to get it. And I'll let you go get it from somewhere else. Now, if you're getting it from somewhere else, I have one rule. I cannot help you raise a snake that somebody else bred as a new baby. I can help you figure out like the general personality and stuff like that. It's better to go to that breeder. And if you're
Mhm.
buying retics from a breeder who will not spend the time for the term of the life of that animal answering your questions, then you need to get the animal from somewhere else. Because I would tell you, even up to the time that those animals bred, you know who I was on the phone with? Jim Jolly. When I saw that snake looked bigger than I ever saw her, I'm like, Jim, no way. She got pregnant from one lot. Jim said, hell yeah, she pregnant. He was like, and she gonna be dropping any day now. But to be able to call him, no matter where he's at in the country, for anything regarding his animals, that's the relationship that I was introduced to reticulated pythons with. And I think that's important. Your first experience, your first breeder, the first purchase, you need someone who's going to walk you through every stage of that animal because there are different stages. Morgan talked about when the first time she started to notice her snake mature in a ear, and it was a shed process, so she thought the snake was dead. And I can relate. I remember Child's first shed process where it was longer and different from her other sheds, and it did look like she was sick or dying. So being familiar with that as a breeder, that's normal. It's somewhere where in that puberty stage for them, they start to shed differently.
Mhm.
And if you have the breeder who walks you through your process, I think you're fine.
Oh,
You're
100%.
fine.
Yeah. No, I agree, and I think, if if your breeder's not willing to answer your questions, this is where, and I can I can totally relate to that because I mean, I get all the time, "Oh, I just bought this. What did I buy?"
Right.
Like, you should go ask
Right.
your breeder, um,
Right.
or, you know, and it on the one hand, you're like sitting here, it's like, "Oh, all right, let me swallow my frustration because I think it's okay, like, for people like us that are, in gym and stuff like that,
Right.
that's the other side of it, guys, is like, hey, yeah, I know that, you're reaching out. Maybe I'm in the middle of something. If I'm gonna give you my time, especially like if it's outside of work or whatever, you know, if if we're gonna give you that time, at least be respectful of it because, especially the evening, stuff like that, guys. There's dinner, my son's got band, like I'm not wanting to sit here and
Exactly.
look at my phone and answer, but I will answer you if you have some, I think that that's a great aspect. I think it's just one of those things that I love it when, people like Jim and stuff, they're there. But I also think it's a good idea for us to make good customers,
Yep.
teach them good habits,
Yep.
right? And stuff like that with that and be like, and that's where like for me, if somebody buys a snake, right? Like I said, I do it 9 to 5:30 every day, 5 days a week. So it's my full time, right? And then
Right.
I come home and I have my collection that I have to take care of, my dog, my girlfriend, my kids.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I tell everybody once they buy a snake, I said, listen, I said, I know that the community as a whole, most breeders are hobbyist breeders that will answer you anytime. I was like, I want you to know that you have a direct contact line with me. But I said, if it's after 5:30, if it's not like, if your snake's not shipping Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I do pay more attention to the work phone in case somebody says, hey, I've got a delay, right? And I will take
Right.
care of that. But otherwise, it's like, okay, like I will, I've got this going on. I will answer you though the next business day if it's not an emergency when it, for that. And they understand it. But I think as long as you manage people's expectations,
Yep.
right, then you get a positive response and you don't get hurt feelings that go online and being like all of a sudden, oh, he's ignoring me after an hour, right, or a weekend. I think it's there's the other side of that too that I think is that we need to teach our customers,
Yep.
right? That
Absolutely.
side of it as well. And I think all around, I think, overall, I'm in the short time I've been in the community, I love the improvements that I'm seeing from people like yourself and Abby and Lori Tarini and to where it's not just the excitement of Jay Brewer on Instagram, tormenting this female, and that's we want to show people that there is a other side to these animals.
Yep.
And
And that's the thing. We have to be more on the forefront, right? And I will say, if you think about it, and this is no dig to anyone, but I'm very, I'm not a fan of how Jay very specifically presents these animals
Mhm.
to the world. I get so many people inboxing me, like they'll send me a video. I'm like, y'all, he's making that animal do that. If I come over here to even one of the sweetest animals y'all see, and I start frailing something at it, it's going to get defensive at some point too. It's not going to let me keep doing that for 5 and 10 minutes. So I do think that it's enough of us out there now that that's in the background. I mean, people see
It's
retics totally different today than they did
oh
5
yeah.
years ago.
Well,
And that's
and
why I encourage people to, like even for this podcast, this is about retics. A lot of people have questions. I know a lot of y'all don't keep them, but a lot of people who see me at shows with them and stuff like that, who wants to keep them and they get to hold them and stuff. These are the type of conversations you need to hear. It's not just the me thing because people were like, they're just your retics. No, it's not just my retics. Anybody can keep them this way.
yeah, it
Anybody can
is.
keep them this
It's a
way.
change in your mindset towards that animal and how you keep that animal.
Yeah. And in something you said earlier about changing even sometimes the behaviors of animals. So Morgan, my co-host, like she took in a 16 footer recently. And actually the animal came to her sick. She had to get it treated and all that type of stuff as well. It's funny how to Morgan, this snake is still defensive, right? Because it's totally different from the other retics she keep. But the snake can come out. The snake can roam around. It's not defensive when it's out the enclosure, but it's way more defensive than any of her snakes is, just for the fact that the snake wasn't kept well before.
Right.
So now she's working to get it to be like the rest of her snakes. And the reality of it is that, and she knows that it may never be. And that's one of the beauties of, I tell people will hit me up and like, I never kept, but you want to buy, a snake that's always a year old. I have one younger, get a younger snake, so you can grow up with that snake, and that snake can be the exact animal you want it to be. And I think that's the most important thing. Is a lot of times people want to come in and they want to get that great big old snake first. That's not smart for your first retake, because there's so much about that, such a learning curve about the animal you just don't know.
Oh
Was that
yeah.
the Roddy I just saw the head? Yes, I see the dog.
Oh yeah. Blue, say hi. Say hi. That's Blue.
I
Mm,
miss my baby so much. And I don't want another.
yeah.
The crazy thing is, I want another big dog because I like having, that extra edge of protection. But I'm struggling because if I want to have a big dog, I want it to be another Rottweiler because of personality. But I know if that next Rottweiler is not just like Rocco,
It's tough, right? Yeah.
yeah. So I gotta figure out what big dog is going to be, but I can't. I don't think I can do another Rottweiler. I miss my baby so much.
I don't know. I think I'm in love with the breed. I don't know if I could not do another Rottweiler
Yeah, and
after
so that's
this.
the hard part
I
because the
know,
breed
like
is amazing. Like
the
we talk
Roddy
about the
Rumble.
retics.
Uh,
Yes, I love
I love
that.
everybody. Oh, he's being defensive.
I
I'm like,
love
no,
it. No, you're not.
like,
I love
he
it.
just
And you
wants
can feel
hugs.
it. You can hear it's like the whole house. What I miss with my dog, he was a big, big, like playful Roddy. But when he would hear something, he had to go into like protective how he got real tall. Like he would go from one height to like his whole chest and everything would go like this. I was like,
He
oh my goodness.
And he does the same, and he's built. His head is huge. His head's like as big as his shoulders, and then he
Yeah.
narrows back, you know. And geez, people are like, "Man, he'll tear somebody up." I was like, "If he had to, maybe. I don't know."
If he had to, they definitely will.
Otherwise, if I
They
if I tell you like, "Oh, go pet him," his middle name's Eileen because he's gonna lean that whole weight against you and try and knock you over.
Yeah,
But
they're amazing.
well, oh man, we're pushing past the hour. Let Mike, I know he's got some other stuff too, but it was
Yes,
absolutely great talking with you.
I
I
knew
had
it
a
would be.
blast. I want to get you back on, and I would love in the future to plan an episode where to have like you and Abby on
Oh, cool.
and
Yes.
together, right?
Yes.
And maybe even I might even see if I could get Lori on, right? Because I think
Okay.
each of you like have something, and we're gonna have to keep it a little more structured. I'm gonna come in and be
Right.
like, "All right, questions here. You got this much time to answer." So if we did it, but I think it would be a very cool, informative show, and I think it would be great because it's all the ladies, and so if you're up for that in the future, then I would
Absolutely.
definitely love to see it. And I know I have to catch Abby. She's in school right now, so we'll have to see when she gets a break and stuff. And I'll reach out to Lori too. But if we could plan that in the future, I think it would be an awesome, informative episode because all three of you are
Absolutely.
extremely informative. Um, and then, like I said, I think it would be a great thing to show three just prominent women in the retic industry to say, hey, you know what? Go out there, like here's the
Yeah.
reality. I'm messing with these big ones and I'm 5'3", it's
I
so
love
funny to
them.
me when I get guys who are like, they're like, well, I'm only 6'2", so I can only handle a snake that's 5 feet. And I'm like, here's a 5 foot retic in my 12-year-old son's hand. Like he's holding it right here,
Right.
And they're like,
Exactly.
oh, maybe oh my but it
Yeah.
was absolutely great. Tell everybody
You
where
too,
they can find
Joe.
you.
Yep, absolutely. So I spend a lot of time on TikTok. I love it. So TikTok is where that customer we talk about is that customer who will get educated first. So Lady Tiz Exotics on TikTok, Lady Tiz Exotics on YouTube, and Lady Tiz Exotics on Instagram. And every Monday, Morgan and I do an educational podcast where we don't just talk about like reptile breeding and keeping. We talk more about what we want our customers to know about the animals that they keep and things like that. Education of just the anatomy of the animal, so understanding why you don't want to overfeed and stuff like that. So
100%.
that's where I'm at. But any IG, TikTok, everything is Lady Tiz Exotics. And at most of the national shows at least once a year. And I do a lot of our local shows here as well, in
Nice.
attendance. And I actually do the Gettysburg show every 6 months here for sure. I never miss that one.
Oh, wait, where are you at?
I'm in the DMV, so I'm in Southern Maryland. I was born and raised in
Oh,
Baltimore, but I live in right where where National Harbor is.
I do. I've
You can
spent a lot
literally
of
walk
time over there.
You can walk 5 minutes from my house and you're at National Harbor.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I got a really good idea where you're at then. Yep. So spent a lot of time up in that area. I got friends over there and everything when I was recruiting in Maryland, and then when I
Okay. Oh,
also
that's
like
right.
always.
I'm near the
uh,
bases. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was on the west end. I did Allegheny and Garrett County,
Oh,
but
okay.
I had
Okay.
a ton of friends in Frederick and Baltimore, and then and all that area. And I
Yeah.
used to go over there all the time, and then DC and stuff too. So
Yep.
for sure, there was. I don't think that anybody loves their flag more than Maryland people do. So they put that thing on everything.
every apartment community, yeah, we do. We love our flag. It's not even that pretty. We just proud. We're Maryland proud.
Proud of it, for sure. Awesome. Well, it was
Thank you,
great.
guys.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
Thank you, Chad.
We'll
Thank you to everybody who came through
Thanks
the chat. I
everybody
saw
that
you.
joined us in the chat, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth, the wisdom is sound in the Retic Rundown. We're breaking new ground. From the jungles deep to the captive scene, Retics rule the world if you know what I mean. With patterns so bold and sizes extreme, in the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Unlocking secrets of the Serpentine Kings, sharing knowledge, stories, everything it brings. From breeders to keepers, we pull the strings in the Retic Rundown. Hear the echo rings. Welcome to the Retic Rundown, where the giants roam and the legends are found. Uncoil the truth and let the wisdom resound. In the Retic Rundown, we're breaking new ground. Welcome, Retic lovers. Welcome, Retic lovers.